Okay, in this series, I'm going to talk about making backgrounds for almost anything. I mean, in Illustrator, you could make a background that is for a print sample, or a background for a web page, or a background for a video. In fact, a great way of doing animation in After Effects is to actually use graphics from Adobe Illustrator, because they're vector, and inside the vector inside of Adobe Illustrator, or inside of After Effects, they'll still be vector right inside the program, so you can scale them and shrink them, and they'll still look great. So again, this is lesson 4, and if we look at some printed pieces here, you can see some graphics with some lines and some blends. That's what we're going to talk about. So I had a student who made the flyers for West Valley's marketing and department, and you can see these lines in the background here, and the dotted halftone kind of look that you see here, and then the text and how it's blended together using different techniques. So we're going to talk about making backgrounds like this and making backgrounds like that, and swirls that you see here. We're going to talk about that. More of like a halftone look here with the shapes that you see here, and then more of circle design that you see here with the different patterns and things like that. So we're going to talk about making different kinds of backgrounds here, and here's some samples that I've already made. So we're going to go over how to make things like this, talk about the dot tone path, lines. This is a pretty light one here, but this is a background here, and then text and how to blend text together, and then of course shapes, and mostly using the blending tool. So that's probably what we'll do mostly, would be using the blending tool. So and then there's some great patterns on the Adobe website that I've linked to here. You can see some of the backgrounds here, some patterns there, some patterns that they got like going there, some nice shapes that you can download and maybe use for a background. So you can see some backgrounds here. So there's a lot of different templates and backgrounds that you can look at to get ideas. In addition, there's some page numbers that we'll cover, making lines and patterns, okay, and possibly using a liquify tool. We'll be reviewing the blending modes. I think we did the blending mode when we did the star, and then there's some other effects on Chapter 7, all about using the effects window to do the halftone and things like that. And then finally, we'll talk about an opacity mask and how to use make an object so it blends. So those are some of the things that we'll cover. Let me just open one up so you can see a sample here. As you can see here. Maybe here's the halftone example that I made there. I'm using basically, it doesn't matter what size right now, but it just depends on what kind of background you want to use. The other thing to keep in mind is you don't have to fit within the window. If you look at some of these, like these lines I made here, you'll see they go way outside the viewable area. And then when you save it, it only saves what's inside there. So if you choose the appropriate size ahead of time, like if we go under File, New, let's start under File, New. And if you look underneath your new document profiles under there, you'll see you have your print options, your web options, your mobile device. Maybe you want to make a nice texture to put on your cell phone, or film and video. So if you're making a video, a high definition video, they're all right inside here. You have the HD 1080 right there. You have the JVC Pro option one, the normal widescreen TV or regular TV. So all the options are right there for all the different kinds of backgrounds you want to make. Okay, I was just using print with the landscape just to give us a common kind of background here. So the first thing I want to review will be the actual blending mode. If you remember the blending mode, we did it before with oh, jeez. Okay, I got too many windows open here. It's driving me crazy. Okay, so one of the easiest ways to get maybe a pattern going across your page is to actually use the blending mode. So I'll show you what I mean. If I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm just going to turn off the stroke, and so I'm going to just get a colored rectangle here. It's a real simple way of making a background. Might be to make a rectangle. I'm going to use sort of non-saturated, because when I'm making backgrounds, I tend to make them very light, and so that when I put text or pictures or something over it, that they're just they're not interfering. So I tend to use really non-saturated colors as much as possible. And if I duplicate this one, I'm going to use the option click and drag and hold the shift key down so I can duplicate it to the other side, and then maybe even change the color a little bit here. And then an easy way to get sort of the rectangles going across the page would be just to use the blending mode. So here's the blending mode. If you double click on it, you see your different steps that you have here. So I'm going to leave it at 12 for right now. And if I click on the dot here and click on the center dot here, you'll see it'll go across the page. And then, another kind of easy pattern would be doing the same thing, but maybe even going down this time. So maybe going across the page this way. Kind of duplicate that again, option click and drag, or it's alt click and drag on Windows, and then give it a color down here. Maybe we even use different colors, maybe a blue, and then maybe this one could be a kind of a pinkish, and then maybe do that again where you go using the blend tool. Now, of course, this isn't as long as this one going across, so I might use less steps. Maybe only use 7 steps for this one. Click in the middle here, click in the middle there, and then so you can get a pattern like that. Okay, and then if you want to kind of weave them, as you see when you click on one of them, when you use the pattern or the blend option here, when you click on them, it kind of groups them together. But what you can do is you can actually ungroup them if you want. Somehow you can ungroup it. Where is it? Expand. It'll turn it into there. So if you want to ungroup them, object expand, and now it'll turn each one back into an individual. So if you want to kind of maybe after expand, you have to ungroup too. So now they're ungrouped. Expand and ungroup to get them to be kind of individual ones. So then you could maybe you put one in front of the other and back and forth. I don't know. Just so that you might want to rearrange them or something like that. So once you expand or ungroup them, you can rearrange them and do things. Maybe it's in front of this one but behind this one. You know what I mean? In front of that one. It would take a while to go through and do all that, but you get the idea of how to use the blend tool to kind of give you a basic shape. Oh, that one brought all the way to the front. Actually, let me undo that so we go back. Okay, so a nice sort of simple back, and then another way of doing that. Once you do stuff like this, then you can actually do more fun things with it. Maybe you grab it and group the whole thing together, and then maybe you just simply move it a little bit. I'm going to use the duplicate and duplicate it just a little bit, offset it a little bit. Okay. Let me try that again. Offset it a little bit. And then maybe color it. Let's color all black. Okay. And then maybe object arrange, send it back. So maybe you get a pattern like that. So you can see just by simply, rotating it. Oh, I've made backgrounds that look just like that before. So that's how you can do it with the lines. Another way, let me delete that. Another great way of using the blend tool would be maybe with just lines. I'm going to use just the arc tool here. And maybe make an arc that comes down the side there, and then give it some color. Let's give it some color. And then maybe instead of a basic plain one, the new multi-size now that we have strokes that can have different thickness. So maybe you have one that goes like that, and if we duplicate that, maybe rotate a little bit, maybe stick them together there at the end like that, maybe change the color a little bit, and then blend them together. So now I'm using a stroke. All these are is the arc tool with different thickness of the arc, and then maybe use the blend tool here again to give you kind of shapes like that. I don't know why they're square in the end when they were kind of pointy at the end. Maybe the blend tool has problems with the stroke being different thickness. because it looks like it doesn't look right, but that's okay. Maybe you just scale it outside the visible area like that. And that could be a nice sort of background just like that with just certain colors like that. And then you can, give yourself maybe a gradient. Let's review gradients for a moment. Maybe a gradient background here. So you make a rectangle. Oops. Let's turn off the stroke here and give it a fill. And, give yourself a nice gradient background. Put some colors in for your gradient background. Well, I don't know if blue and green and yellow are all going to go good together. How about we put some orange in there? And then kind of change the angle using the gradient tool so it goes maybe vertical, horizontal, or something. It's not a very different kind of. And maybe send it to the back. So just by using the different features, and it's not the best looking background, but you get the idea. You can use a combination of gradients with maybe this blend here. But you're looking at it kind of going outside. But if you were going to save it, like if I was going to put this on a web page or something, you can go File, Save for Web and Device. Well, actually, let's soften this up a little bit. Another way to sort of blend things together would be using the transparency option. And of course, you got blending modes that you can use and adjust, which don't seem to be working very well here. Oh, it's because I got them both selected. I wanted this selected. Now let's try blending mode. So you got things like that. You got the darken, lighten, hard light. No, it's all the same color. Difference. Ooh, look at that one. Hue. That looks pretty decent. Multiply. That looks pretty decent. Multiply. So again, as you're looking at that, all I did was a couple blends, a couple blend background. But if you look, you can go under File, Save for Web and Device. And if you save that as a JPEG or GIF and put it on your website, you got a nice sort of background right there. And you can see how it's cropped out from the artboard area. Okay, so just by doing something like that, you can give you a nice sort of background.